Hello, and welcome to the Creative Playing Podcast Network. Join us as we get to share some great convention panels we were able to attend at CoKoCon 2019 up in Phoenix, Arizona. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and rpgpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last panel open to the general public for tonight. Everything after this is 18 plus. This is writing and role-playing games, or writing both. We have a number of known experts in that area. I'm Tony Patagimas. I've written one of each. This is the book. You can buy it in the dealer's room. You can play the game tomorrow night in the game room if you're interested. It's called Go Action Fun Time. It's about teenage superheroes traveling in time. Ever want to write time travel fiction? You know that you hate yourself at that point. With that, I will let the panel introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Diana. I write post-apocalyptic fiction. Also, I write urban fantasy, which hopefully will come out this year, maybe the beginning of next. We'll see how things work out. And I'm a long-time D&D player. I also have DM'd. I didn't even know modules existed for a long, long, long time, and I kind of find them sort of boring. So, yeah, that's my thing.
I'm Beth Cato. I have two series with Harper Voyager. I have the Clockwork Dagger duology and the Blood of Earth trilogy. Duncan has copies of all of those in the dealer room.
Yay, Duncan!
Yeah. I'm a old school role-playing game fanatic, going back to about age 11 when I really fell in love with Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy and everything else put out by both Square and Enix, who then later formed Voltron to become Square Enix. Played D&D through my teens. All of those influences are in my books. If you read through them, you will find little Easter egg tributes to all of those old games hidden within my books. Just in the past year, I had the opportunity to write for my first intellectual property, writing a story for the Monarchies of Mao role-playing game setting, which is essentially like fantasy with humanoid cats. That's like post-apocalyptic Earth, but cats have taken over and send it along with. The larger setting is Pugmire with dogs, but I wrote for the cats because I am a definite cat person.
Hi, my name is Floyd Getchell. Independent author. I've been playing. I actually found out my original Dungeons & Dragons book, which are first hardcover print editions, are worth a whole lot of money now. People are like, yeah, you should sell them. I'm like, yeah, right. Anyway, yeah, and I'm like, you modules stink. Give me a real dungeon master. Anyway, I just realized something as you were talking about putting stuff in your deal. I'm thinking I don't have any of my books here that actually have game influence in them, which is actually not true. This one, Pilgrim's Trail, this is part of the trilogy. He actually jumps into Battletech influenced body armor, and this book series started off Firefly. Serenity, that's where it started off as, because, well, we all thought Josh Whedon made some errors in there. Anyway, and so I get 20,000 words into it, and I have, it's written from the other side of it. The guy's in the Ranger Service, law enforcement. He's sitting in the red room. He's captured his main suspect, and I just said, hey, why don't we have, he goes, is there anybody else that's being held against their will? And I said, what if an artificial intelligence android steps forward and says, yes, I am.
Oh, interesting.
So that set me off on a totally different course, and then I had to do a whole bunch of research about artificial intelligence. I didn't realize, it's gonna sound arrogant, and I apologize, but I've sat in symposiums and stuff like that, and made me kind of move. As far as artificial intelligence theory goes, I'm kind of up there. And I know that sounds arrogant, folks, but it just happened that way because of the level of research I did with it. And the people I talked to in the circles I've traveled in. We're just supposed to keep going with all the influences of...
You're introducing yourself.
I'm introducing myself, okay, yeah. All right, and then I've written a bunch of other books that have influences in games too, and I brought some of those direct influences with me. Go ahead.
Hello. My name is Stephanie Weippert, and I have 2 books out. Though Duncan sold all but one of them.
Nice.
That one is Sweet Secrets. It is available on Amazon and of course through Tenstoffel Press. And the one that he still has copies of is called Road to Chaos, which has some gaming elements in it. Because D&D, they're kind of like, who hasn't, in a way, but mostly it's running off of Hollywood tropes, and Road to Chaos is off of the old Road to pictures that those old black and white movies. But there are gaming references in my writing in places, because there's pacing that we'll do, especially in story games, and there'll be pacing issues and things that you have to get done before you can go on to and so yeah. I'm also in the More Alternative Truths anthology series from BQ Press. I'm in More Alternative Truths and Endgame. If you like political fiction, they're awesome books. And last but not least, I do have refrigerator magnets. If anyone is interested in having one, it's encouraging you to do your art, because we need more art. More create, less hate. Yes. There, that's an intro.
All right. So, I don't know about you, which is why I'm asking. I first learned to write on deadline through high school. I learned to do it as a dungeon master, because my friends were coming over Friday night and this thing wasn't close to done. So I'm wondering if any of you had a similar experience where you basically started writing on deadline or under pressure in role-playing games first, as opposed to normal fiction.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Because that pressure is right there.
Yes.
They're coming over and you have to have it done. And then you get them in the game and they go this way. And you're like, I just spent weeks on this word going through.
You know, the few times I've DM'd, I've gotten to where, okay, this is a situation, and I want them to eventually end up in this castle. And I'm going to do everything else on the fly, because you can't anticipate.
They will do it. At the beginning, though, you think you know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So then you have to learn to
I
be
much
more
prefer-
flexible.
I much prefer writing books,
Yeah.
because then, damn it, they're going to do what I need them to do.
You know where it helped me though was in world building.
Oh, yeah.
That's where, and I apologize. I find it somewhat amusing to me now, to where people struggle, and I really want. That's one of the things I proposed as a participant, is let me help others world build, because it's something I do. Read this. This actually, I had the second chapter in there, and I had 3 alien worlds just boom, boom, boom. And when that book first came out, it actually lost the reader, because I had hero protagonist, chapter, blah, 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 situation, jump, we're talking about 3 alien worlds, and then jump back to hero protagonist doing his thing in the 3rd chapter, and I totally lost my readers. So I actually had to take that in the second printing of this and go put it in the back of the book so that I could keep the story rolling along. And it's something, because of Dungeons and Dragons, and creatively writing and world building that and now I can just roll with world building. Really, it's something that comes that I can do really easily that I found other writers struggle with, but I can trace that all the way back to creating worlds.
No matter what game you play, Dungeons and Dragons or Shadowrun or
what was the one?
Or
It was
Fire
RPG.
Kingdoms.
I was in
Jackson.
Dragonlance was the one I was really
yeah, that's fun.
It was one in space where you were hopping. You had jump drive and you just hop from alien.
Probably Traveler.
Traveler? What is it?
Traveler.
Were they black books? Black books?
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
small.
Traveler. Yeah,
Traveler.
Yeah, that was.
Traveler's a great one.
That
Big
was
one.
a huge one.
That is a still.
You
that's
could
a
die
going
during character
franchise.
creation. Yeah.
You can still play. You can still buy a new Traveler product.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was one that, honestly, the funniest thing in the world. I used to
I
have
love Shadow.
tons of that. Never actually played the game.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
We'll have to fix
I mean,
that.
you want to, and then you can't find a group that's playing
Yeah,
once.
Yes.
So you get into it, and you're making characters and planning worlds, and then kind of. Okay.
See, that's what I did more often. With my brother, we had a number of role-playing game books, including for a Star Wars role-playing game in the 90s, and then I had tons of Dragonlance material. But we did D&D for a while with a group, and then it kind of died out. And so I would just research and study the books and develop all of these characters that nothing ever happened. But that was also that's how, because I never DM'd, that's really where I was having fun, and I was drawing their pictures, and I would even draw maps and do all this stuff, but never actually got to utilize it.
So perhaps we all learned how to cope with the grief that our well-worked exposition
There you go.
would never see the light of day.
Yes.
Either because the editor doesn't care or the players never got there.
Yeah. But I had fun with it. Yeah.
It's so
Learning to
fun.
suffer in silence.
But having that layer, even if it never gets used in the book or never, the
It's
players
played.
go, it never gets played. It still gives a depth to the world, because even if you don't actually know it's there, it is there, and so it kind of it gives it more realism to what they do experience.
Well, and it also gives you a backstory to develop your character against.
Yes.
And the funny thing is you have I'll do this times when I have a rule now that every what is it? It's every I can't remember. I want to say every 100 pages, but that's not right. It's every so often I have a certain word count on it. I can't remember what it is right now. That and I'll search. I'll do a word search for that character, and if they don't appear in so many pages, I actually will do a character description, because I know my characters. I'm very familiar with my characters, but the average reader is not, and so I'll have to go back and redress it, and I do triggers with my characters and things like that. Because, I'm, like you were saying, the depth of character there and whatnot. I love my characters, I know my characters and things like that, but they don't know. And you have to watch the name homophones, and things like that. Like right now in this series, I have 2 characters that are named Ryan, and I have to keep them,
Oh, that would be very confusing.
Yeah, you want to get one of them,
And one of them has changed his name to Ryan. It used to be Wraith, and so it's like the book's almost over, so they'll survive.
Yeah, I had to do something like that in Sweet Secrets, because the portal to the world where the magic works by cooking, where it does is I wanted to pull from different cultures. So I had to think, well, how would I get like Romans and Japanese people in the same place? Oh, well, if you had an ice age, it would bring everybody down to the center, and so they'd be a lot closer. And so I had to look up what the Earth was like during the ice age, and that's not. There's a one-line mention in the book, but I did all the research to get it all set up on how it would work and the weather patterns, and And also, yeah, when you were saying the research for that, I was going, oh yeah, I understand. And I also had to go down through the animals because one of my beta readers just absolutely adored the fact that I think it was a typo originally, but I had a 6-legged squirrel in the park, and my beta readers just absolutely loved it. So I had to figure out, okay, how would I have a 6-legged squirrel, a 6-legged rodent with 2-legged humans? And so I had to find the place in the world tree that I would snip off and yeah, that's a lot of research.
That's the reason some people don't like Avatar.
I think one good thing about being involved in role-playing games is that you just build this world and you don't have to apologize for how it is. You don't have to apologize there's dragons, you don't have to apologize there's ogres or whatever. That's the world and you've built it and now your characters have to face it. So now you've got a book, and I remember when I first started writing feeling, I'll explain this book, this is so embarrassing. And so then it's like you just have to embrace it just like you would a game and say, no, this is the world and these are the rules and this is how this works. And it just makes it so much easier if you just say, this is my world, I get to do what I want with it, just like I would in role-playing.
You have to accept your godhood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the opposite's true when I'm writing the hard science fiction here, is I have to, like in one of the instances where we made contact with aliens, we couldn't talk to them because they had a high level of arsenic in their atmosphere, and we couldn't talk to them at all. And so, or we couldn't communicate with them directly. We had to be all suited up and whatnot. And so that was a huge impetus. We descend from the heavens, so what are they going to think we are? They're going to think we're gods. Then they started erecting statues and things like that. So I had to create a whole biosphere around that. And so the suspension of disbelief, yeah, when you're writing in the role-playing game world, you can create that whole thing. You don't have to apologize for anything.
If you start making it unbelievable,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, my suspension of disbelief is broken now. I'm not enjoying this game anymore. So you have to still be able to make it something that would be believable.
Yeah.
So if it's a space game, you have to be able to go there. You have to have enough science to know what you're talking about.
Well, I have a related question then for everyone. When you're writing, do you kind of write almost like a rule book for your worlds, whether it's for magic or for the science fiction, to kind of act as a guideline to frame it for you, for reference, to make sure it's for consistency? Because I tend to do that kind of thing, especially with my magic. This is the steps, these are the herbs that are necessary for the healing magic. This is what's necessary to successfully heal someone and do things like that. That way, I almost have a checklist for when I'm going through and editing. It's like, am I doing my own magic right? And I can go through and check that.
Well, I mean, I don't think I have like a little rule book for myself.
Okay. For me, it's like a Word doc that I just track it.
Yeah. Well,
I track things in a Word doc. I track characters, I track different plot lines that I'm using or not using. I track places and timelines, but I think I kind of know how the world is, and the character in the fantasy novel is a person who already has, she's a psychic, so she already has something that normal people don't know about. So she's going forward and discovering that there are other people that are abnormal too. So it's like a discovery, and the reader gets to go.
This book here, this series here is hilarious because physics is my rule book, right? But it deals with dark matter, dark energy.
Okay.
And we figured out that dark matter, dark energy is something that you can control with electricity. And so we use it to travel through space to create a dark matter field, and you can actually use it to connect Einstein-Rosen bridge events and travel. You can hop through space, stationary events, you can connect and create wormholes, control wormholes. Takes a lot of energy.
Using dark energy.
Using dark energy and dark matter, right? See, and I get the same physicists look at me, and they go, "Well, we don't know that." But you don't know I'm wrong either.
That's true.
And it was so, I was at CoKoCon, and they had a whole bunch of Astro in San Diego a year and a half ago, and it was hilarious, and they were looking at me the same way. And it was like, well, we don't know you can do that. And I was like, well, we don't know you don't.
Right?
Don't know we can't.
Might as well do it.
And so, in the Chronicles of Riddick, when the ships are coming down from the Necromongers, and they have that dark mist around the vehicles. That's how I visualize that dark matter being used as a buffer state to suspend the ships. That's what I visualize that as. And I thought, okay, that's what, I wrote this long before that. And so that's how I visualize that. And so I kept using that, and they use it for anti-gravitational purposes and stuff like that. You magnify it and move it around. And those are, you're bending the rules of physics. How do we freaking know? The only way we know that dark matter exists is through gravitational lensing. And so things like that. And so,
You're playing with, you're filling in the blanks in the rule book.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny to watch these astrophysicists' brains melt. It's like, we don't know that. And well, we don't know that either. Like, had a lot of fun. They did. One of them quit talking and was a friend of mine. I'm like, whatever, dude.
You're gonna be like, well, when we do eventually find out what it is and you're wrong, you'll be like the people who thought that uranium would make plants grow faster in the 40s.
Or that they were
What if I'm right? I'm a prophet.
There you go. It's a good gamble.
Critical. You're ready for your run, isn't it?
A lot of the science in Heinlein and Asimov isn't as good as we thought it was back then. But the books are still good to me. I still will read those books. I mean,
I've got one that's actually related to that. This is hilarious. I wrote this. This is actually a sequel to H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. And because I'm a history scholar and degrees in history, and I got done reading it. I don't know if anybody's read the original H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. I pushed it forward. I think 4 years it was supposed to happen in 1896. A lot of this technology comes available in the turn of the century. And what I did is Victorian England never would have taken that. Never would have taken smackdown by aliens and done something. They would have counterattacked Mars. They would have figured out how to go and attack Mars. This is the book of the counterattack on Mars. Okay, what I did is I took what we actually know about Mars now. The actual facts of Mars. This isn't a steampunk book, but people have just totally adopted it as a steampunk book.
People will say anything in that setting, people will say that.
I know, it's hilarious.
That's what I get on the cover, you're good.
What I did, I overthink stuff. This is actually the same cover the book came out in originally, so, there are like 2 people in the world that know that, me and some other nerd. But that's the same cover that Wells' book had on it, right? So, yeah, I overthought that one. So anyway, good one, Floyd. And that's the diary of the lieutenant colonel. And in the original book, there's a artillery battery that knocks over one of the lockers, right? And that's the battery commander is Prince Edward gets a hold of him and says, "You're going to lead the counterattack, you're reverse engineer the stuff." And they go to Mars as we know it now. The funniest thing in the world is when I first wrote the book, I sent them up there with the understanding of Einstein's relative, Einstein's relative
theory of
relativity and gravity and understanding of gravity. They wouldn't have had that.
No, they wouldn't have had.
They would have had. Yes, they would have had.
Newtonian.
No, it was what's his name? Apple fell on his head. Newton. They would have had Newtonian. They would have had Newtonian. They would have had Newtonian Yeah, it would have been Newtonian
It would have been
physics.
classics physics.
Yeah, they would have thought gravity was constant with a slight transition as you transition between the gravity of. So when they get up just out of the atmosphere and gravity lets go of them, then they would have been surprised by that. So I had to go back and rewrite. It was actually in publication for like 2 weeks, and I went, oops, wait a minute. Hey, time out. We got to go rewrite this. But anyway, that was a pretty funny one. Talking about the limits and stuff like that.
Do any of, I used to read, we'll get, one more question and we'll get to all you guys. I used to read the books that TSR would put out, novels based on the series, and I could just see the spells working in those things. How hard have you guys had to work to hide your actual rules?
Hide the rules?
Hide the rule in the narrative fiction.
It's about pacing for me.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying, where you pace it out so that you discover it. So your character discovers certain things along the way. They think they know the rules,
Right.
and then it changes.
Right.
So you're talking about hiding the rules of magic from the reader?
Well, disguising the fact that you're going off known rules, right? So,
Not making it read like it's just a how-to,
Right.
step by step.
No, you can't. It's not.
Oh,
It's
no,
show,
you don't.
not tell.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, one of
You're
the
showing.
tricks that I use, which lots of other writers use, is have somebody who doesn't do the magic be the point of view person that you're using. I did that in Road to Chaos. The Robert is, well, he managed to get through algebra in high school, and this magic system is based upon higher math. So he is just like, his eyes are spinning. So to him, even when they try to explain something to him, vital parts are going to be going over his head, and so that keeps. But the reader could still tell if it's not consistent. So you do need the rules, but you don't have to tell them the
Right.
rules.
You just show them as the occasion comes up.
Through the point of view.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. This gentleman is very patiently.
So you had mentioned that you have a background in history.
Yes.
It makes me wonder, for everybody, when you come up with a world building idea, how often do you have a world building idea that's somehow connected to sort of knowledge or expertise that you have? So how often do you have an idea and go, I need to research that?
Oh.
I think a couple of us are talking about it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm doing surviving historical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So be there for that panel
Good.
tomorrow.
There's always things that you have to research, though. It's like even if you're doing a game, if you're building a game, there are things, and you go back to the book and figure out what's possible and what you can do and what you can put your players through. There's always research. Don't look at my browser history as a marker of my character.
How to murder with candles.
Yeah.
No, I'm on an FBI watch list. I mean, I just accept it.
Oh, I know I am.
I got not the one of you, but I used to be on a KGB.
Oh, that's impressive to get in a foreign country.
It was because I was in the where I was at. I was an Army Ranger at one time, and we were just all on by default on the KGB's watch list.
So it wasn't your search history.
It was back in the 80s, not because of book research.
No, but I will call my friends and say, okay, how does this weapon work again? Or, okay, I need a poison,
Nice.
and I want it to be indetectable by taste, but they have to die pretty painfully.
Well, that's the fun. I have
Yes.
a couple really good books on poison that are really fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need those.
I've actually used RPG source books for research
I
because I
have
know
the Army manuals. Army
exactly where
survival.
they got
I
those.
read
Oh yeah.
The Art of War to help me
Yeah,
with
yes.
this book. Okay, I mean, and I had to figure out how to do guerrilla warfare. And
Yeah, I've done
I
that
mean, you
too.
have to do that.
Stamps.
It's like you have to know this stuff. You can't just write about it and think somebody's going to come back and say this is stupid. Oh, no.
Subject matter expert.
Oh, thank you.
I read somebody writing me going, well, they wouldn't have done it that way because it really wouldn't have. Evolution would not have worked that way.
I got one for you.
What?
You guys know Harry Turtledove?
Yeah.
Okay, Harry Turtledove. Got to talk to him, and he said I could tell this story. He actually fits. I'll tell the history one. He actually was. They wouldn't do it that way. He got a letter one time. His Guns of the South book, right? It's his most famous book where time travelers go back and they give AK-47s to the Confederacy and they fight the Civil War to a draw. And then history actually turns out the way they didn't want it. So any of the South African white supremacist guys. Anyway, so he had in there, he had, what's George Washington's birthday? 19th February or something like that, 21st February?
Yeah.
Okay, he, in the original printing of the book, he had the telegraph, they got a telegraph in Richmond, Virginia that on the 19th February, blah, 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 blah. He gets this letter from a historian, and you gotta understand that Harry Turtledove's got his doctorate in history. And he gets this 12-page long single-space letter. Sir, I do not wish to take up a lot of your time, but...
Well, actually, one of those.
Yeah, and the telegraph office would not have been open on that day because the, him and I got into a discussion on
There's always an
2013.
expert that is more of an expert
Yeah.
than your expert, and I'm sorry for any reader that finds an inconsistency, but I did my best.
That's all you can do, and you have to accept that.
Yes.
Yeah, Harry Turtlev was at CoKoCon last year as guest of honor, and he was really
He was
cool.
very nice.
He was
he was here? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
this weekend.
Last year.
Yeah,
That's how we know him.
That's how you guys all know him.
Yes.
I missed him. That's last
He
year.
was a very nice
No.
man.
No,
Very
yes,
nice.
I'm gonna tell this other story at the history thing, him and I interacting, and he said I could tell the story, actually.
Yeah.
Actually. Duncan, do you have signed books by him still?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thought I'd give you a plug for that.
Yeah, there you
Duncan has all the good books.
go. Actually, I can pick this up since I just killed the conversation, I'm gonna pick it back up. I have a book that, actually is out of print right now. Someday they're gonna let me do my first novel, it was originally titled Capitulation. You know how a book sells, the title sells the book, what the hell does that mean, right? Capitulation. The new title is Alien Copper Conspiracy, and it is being rewritten now. You can look it up on Amazon. But it's my first novel, and the presentation I want to do is everybody's first novel, and for an hour I'll sit up there in front of everybody and just make fun of myself. It's got an atrocious cover on it. The book is just hilarious. There were 3 characters in there that just fall off the pages of the book. You don't know what happened to them. Just all, basically every mistake you can. Anyway, that actually started out, we were talking about Battletech earlier, that actually started out as, there used to be I don't know if it's still in Vegas or not, it was a place called Virtual World. And you used to be able to crawl into Virtual World and get actually in a cockpit, and it had all these Mac computers hooked up to each other, and you could run around on a battlefield like you're playing Battletech. And it was a blast. And so I'm driving through the desert in New Mexico on 10 from Las Cruces to towards Tucson, and I go, man, it'd be so fun to be ripping through here, just blowing shit up.
Yep.
Right? That is on page 196 of that book.
It happens where you're in a situation, you say, you know what would be really cool is if this could happen, and then, you know, that could go in this little section here where I could totally make this into a story. I'm going to do that.
Well, that's actually how that whole novel started, and then I built that whole book around that. And it's aliens invading Earth and on and on.
Virtual World's gone, but they have those Battletech pods that just
So,
they're pretty cool.
have you ever had an idea of like a book or a story and tried it out with gaming, like with your players?
It's like you're testing.
Yeah.
Oh. You are experiment victims. Let's do this.
Yep.
I have not.
I
Normal answer too.
I personally have not, but one of my writer friends up in Seattle has. Her name is Jean Johnson. She has a book called The Tower, and everything in that book she swears to me she's done to her gaming group. And there are some very interesting things in that book at the tower, and I'm going, they still like you?
That's the fun of the game. I mean, you put them in interesting situations and see what they can do.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly, I think I've done stories where I said, okay, I want to see if this works. It's a one-off. Let's just try this. And okay, that won't work, but this will. So.
I know I've done action scenes where I've actually gotten out the miniatures
Oh yeah.
and laid them out so I knew where everyone was at this point. And then we move around and make sure that it all tracked with the what I was actually writing.
That's a good
I've
idea.
actually I've fought out scenes to create. I have a series that isn't published or anything. It's called Dark Angel. That was before the thing with what's her face came out. Jessica Alba came out. This is it's Dark Angel, and it's another battle tech thing. But I fought that one out to create Dark Angel because the battle tech engine that's how it got its name. It's all screwed
Yeah,
up.
and you do write what you know. So like when I
Yes.
lived in Japan, I learned how to do judo. So I do use judo, and I do yoga. So I do use yoga, and or whatever it is that I need to get the characters to physically do, I usually will figure it out how I could do it or how someone else could do it if they have the skills. But I can't write about things I don't know about unless I do a ton of research.
Mapping things out really helps. I have a short story that has human players who are stuck on an alien space station. They were supposed to go to an intergalactic Olympics and they end up stranded on this icy station. And there's a pivotal hockey game that they end up playing on this station. And we're season ticket holders for the Coyotes, so I have basic knowledge of hockey, but it's not my expertise.
Right.
So my husband actually he drew, just like you would see, a coach drawing it out for a hockey game, and we mapped out, this is where this player is, okay, here's where your goalie is, and we went through the whole scene for the climax, and I still kept that because it was the one time where it was like our battle map, and it was a hockey game.
Absolutely. And I have gone to like Google Maps because this is post-apocalypse.
Google Maps is
Right?
fantastic.
So we're now in Colorado, and now we've got these people that are trying to fight off the invaders. And so where would be a good place for an ambush? And so here I am on Google Maps, like, oh, this would be pretty good to know this, and then, well, how can we sweep them all away? And it's like, I use that constantly. I use Google Maps.
I used Google Maps when I needed to know what Tibet looks like, the countryside of Tibet, and where the major cities were. And
how did writers write without
Google
Maps? I think you had to go places.
You had to go there, right?
You'd actually go places.
But the thing, like, one of the things that really, back to my alien copper conspiracy, that really bit me in the rear, because I was sitting there, the reason that book is so huge is because I wrote about people in Africa, Australia, Asia, all over the world, because I wanted to be inclusive, and I wrote about Australia, and I looked on Google Earth and all that stuff, and then I actually went to Australia. Oh my, it's very different from what you see in the pictures, and I realized I went back and I rewrote that because it's very different from the pictures you see on your the outback. The outback is a very different place than what you see in pictures.
Google Earth helps a lot, but it's another thing to experience it.
it's a tool. So it's a tool. To add another way that my role-playing game helps me in writing, if I have to come up with the bad guys surprise my protag in a hallway, and I don't know how many it's gonna be. It's gonna be enough, so it's gotta be at least 2, but more than 5 would not fit in this hallway. Okay, 1d4. And that's how many. I've done that.
That's hilarious. I love that. We just keep them right there.
Yeah.
Is that why I bought you dice?
I declined to answer on the grounds that it may.
Well, they actually literally sell storytelling dice that
Yeah.
are kids
Story
choose ideas
dice.
and you can, and there are also some online engines that people have created that will randomize things.
Randomizers.
Yeah.
I'm too much of
Random
a
name
control freak
generators.
to
that
let
work
someone
with
take
you.
over and tell me how.
Yeah.
I had, I've been working on this book for a long time, and we'll actually get into this more of the history thing, but its working title is The History of World War II. You may ask why, how can you have a book about something that hasn't existed yet? It's alternate history.
Well, I think anyone at this con would completely accept that.
Well, yeah.
Question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. So anyway,
Yeah, you're good.
Get on with it. So anyway, the premise of the book is we don't drop, Japan surrenders before we do Japan. And because somebody said something on the History Channel that pissed me off and I started researching. So,
Yeah, being pissed off is a good reason to start.
I started researching them. So what would happen if that indeed happened? And that's actually where these two little tiny models come from, because if you look closely at the Sherman, it doesn't look like an actual Sherman tank. And then the other piece of hardware there is a German, it's called the Kitten in Altdeutsch, and it is a fictitious armored personnel carrier they're getting ready to build. And this one, surprisingly, has a 50 caliber U.S. made on it. Anyway, so World War II ends, and then the Russians decide that they want to continue the party because they don't think our nukes are going to work, and that's a fact. I researched the heck out of this, and that's where the history gets out of control.
I can see how it would, yeah.
So anyway,
That's a rabbit hole.
so anyway, and this, I wargame, okay, we're talking about gaming here, I wargame in N scale, and I'm, needless to say, got probably way too many of these little tiny tanks in this scale. So, everybody, yeah, and now we've answered the other mystery, why is Floyd single? So, or the other paradox, Floyd is single, and that's why he can have all these tiny tanks. So, there we go. So anyway, so
Correlation does not equal causation.
yeah. Thank you. So
There might be personality reasons why.
The
Ouch! Okay then.
I'm sorry.
You brought him off and then you took him right back down. Better build you up and then blow you.
I'm sure he'll find an attractive nurse at the burn ward.
That was good. I'm a retired senior NCO from the United States Army. My skin is probably actually bulletproof. So anyway, but yeah, it's funny the paradox of that book, because there is the other reason I started writing it is because there is this, if you go on to GHQ, they are the guys that make micro armor. And they have this, it's called Wehrmacht 47, and their premise is, it drives me crazy as a historian, is that Hitler doesn't declare war on the United States on December 8th, and so we don't fight them, we go fight the Japanese. That never ever would have happened in a bazillion and 7 years if you know anything about history.
Because we were already supporting Great Britain.
Yeah, thank you. I know, anybody
My
that knows
mom's a
anything.
historian. I know this by
Yeah,
myself.
so anyway, and so the Germans got on it, it's just so you can play with all the cool things the Germans were thinking about making at the end of the war. So anyway, and that's one of the Kitten's one of those things. So anyway, more likely what would have happened is Japan would have surrendered early, we don't nuke them, Stalin decides he wants to party and take the rest of Germany, and that was a really scary night when I was in Potsdam researching this, and I actually found where Stalin in fact said that. Did I go looking for it? No, I'm not that kind of a researcher. I don't go in with preconceived biases. because it just makes you a crummy researcher, okay? But anyway, so that's where those come from. That's why I brought them.
Sometimes the truth is stranger than anything you could ever
Right?
think. Yeah.
Believe me, when you come to my thing tomorrow, what I discovered, I'm just sitting there. Two and a half weeks ago, I figured this out, and I can't figure out. Nobody else figured this out before. B, some of the alternate explanations for what I discovered are hilarious, and the other thing is it's amazing. It was like a key that unlocks all this stuff about ancient Egypt. It's just absolutely amazing what I found out. Anyway, sorry, that's my personal plug for my amazing life. But anyway. But yeah, that history of World War III, hopefully, I've been writing that book for freaking 10 years now. I actually lost over 100,000 words on it when my computer crashed, right? And then who knew spilling coffee over an SD card erases it?
Oh.
I did not know that.
Do you have any backups?
Question from the back.
So,
If he had backups,
out of
he would have
curiosity,
lost 100,000 words.
going off the role playing game, and I apologize if this was handled before I got back in the room. I got distracted.
We'll forgive you.
But actually, I think this probably pertains a little more to the ladies on the panel. But in role playing games, a lot of times even though historically we hear about, or in many things we hear about the male characters and the female characters have their definite role. In role-playing games, the female characters can pretty much play the exact same role as the male characters. Do you find, has that ever really helped you, hindered you? Does it bother you? How does that work into your writing, the sexism / non-sexism?
When I first started, I graduated high school in 1980. That makes me 57. So when I first started playing D&D, I was still a teenager. I wanted to play, and the boys wouldn't let girls play. So I would read all the books, and I would make my maps, and I would do all these things, and I had all these characters, but I couldn't play for a long time. And I found a group when I lived overseas of all guides, all playing D&D, and I got the nerve to approach them and say, can I play? And they let me play, and they're still my very good friends. I've still kept in touch with them, and they're still my very good friends. But they had ideas about what female characters were and were not, and I got to re-educate them, and it was awesome. And so yeah, I could see how it helps build characters if you can play these games with men and women, so that they can say, no, that's not gonna fly. Guys, no, you gotta do that. It's a paladin. She's gonna wear armor, not a bikini, okay? Just please, pay attention to me. So.
For my Clockwork Dagger books, the inspiration behind that was because as a teenager, in 1991, 1992, I fell for Final Fantasy II for Super Nintendo, going by the original American number for the game. And then soon after fell for Dragonlance and the adult fantasy section of the bookstore. And I always wanted, because I love the healer characters, the white wizards, the priestesses, the clerics, whatever it's called in the different settings. And I craved that. I love fighting in books, but they were always the sidekick. And typically as the woman, it was, the nurturing female keeping the big burly hero alive. And that was the dynamic I saw over and over again in video games and in books.
And it gets tiresome.
It gets tiresome, and I wanted to see the healer as the main character. And I never could find that. So years passed, and I decided to, as an adult, I'm going to go back to my childhood dream, and I'm going to try and be a published novelist. I wanted to write the book that I never found.
You've got to write the book you wanted to read.
I did, and people read it and they pick up the Final Fantasy influences and things like that. And to me, and people love it because it is different, because you do have the character who is normally the demoted sidekick, and they are the main character, and they own the book, and I wrote it in a way that it works. But that was decades that I finally got that up and made it a reality.
That penis good.
Well, that was a bulletin for too much information.
Stating the obvious.
Are you though? Oh, sorry.
Okay, I don't want to, after he did that, I'm just going to say that I work real hard to make sure my books pass the best show test.
Go both ways too. You don't
Wanna
want
come back to me?
invisible men. You want a good mix of men and women that are strong and weak and human.
Right.
Yeah,
That-
in
that's
Road to
stereotypical
Chaos,
role.
I have more competent female professors that are in the book and named and talk and do things than I do male professors. Because, well, women can do math. I enjoy math. I'm one of those people. So they would be great at the magic system I'm doing.
Victorian England, but, so obviously male driven, right? However, wife stows aboard one of the spaceships.
Good.
Becomes, because the alien, I won't spoil the plot, but women are important in the book. Pilgrim's Trail series, flawed male protagonist, and the true hero of the book is female. And I'll leave it at that, because I know better.
Good to know.
No, it's,
No, I think the world is changing. I think that things are evolving so that people
In
like
some ways, but yeah.
look at history, though, and there are so many instances where there is a woman that doesn't get credit for it. It absolutely drives me. In the presentation I gave yesterday, there was a woman that made this incredible discovery, archaeological discovery, that showed that the North America was occupied by Homo erectus a quarter of a million years ago.
Are you talking about the Clovis points that they found?
No, this is
Because they found the
pre-Clovis.
same Clovis points in North Europe and North America.
Clovis points are Homo sapiens.
Yeah, those are us.
Oh.
We
That's relatively recent, yeah.
No, this is way
Homo erectus is much earlier.
yeah,
Oh.
a quarter of a million years ago.
And so what happened to
Earl's
the woman who discovered that?
Oh, they said she couldn't have discovered this because she was a girl. Cynthia Irwin Williams, Dr. Cynthia Irwin Williams. I mean, they had an oil company dated this site. They have absolutely no vested interest in this at all. Boy, are we off subject. But anyway. Anyway, but yeah.
So, the last question I have prepared, which has been harder to keep somewhere near your outline? The player characters at the table or the characters in your head?
Oh, they both run away.
Yeah.
They do. But I mean,
And they went to Monty Python style.
I have learned through hard experiences you can't force your characters and you can't force your players. You have to let them run as they will. Otherwise, it's just not fun.
They have more fun when they
Yeah,
do.
you have to be true to your character.
Yeah.
You could make them do something,
Right,
but
but
if
it
it's
would
out of
be
character, your reader will notice.
Well, they need agency. You can't have the plot be what's in control.
Yes.
Right.
The players or the characters have to be the ones who take the agency.
I'm a seat of your pants author. I write. I don't. Yeah. I think you guys sound like you are too.
I don't like crazy.
I said.
I'm kind of a hybrid because I have, okay, we're starting at A, I want to hit G over here and get this, and then that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like the perambula, the drunk coming home from the bar,
I learned
across
that they call those puzzlers.
Yes.
He said Diana Gabaldon does that, where she'll do just different scenes and then put them all together.
See, that's what I did for my first novel.
I
It
can't
wasn't
make
any
it.
fun, and so I'm totally seat of the pants. It's really cool, because when I sit down to write, guys, it's like you're reading it. I don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
I have no clue. It's so fun. It's like I'm reading it for the first time as I'm
Well,
writing
you
it,
are.
and it's just such a
You're
blast.
telling yourself a
And I'm
story.
like, yeah, and I'm just cranking it out, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy just did this. This is so cool.
Oh God, now I gotta change this scene back.
No, not at all.
Oh, you have to do
No,
that.
So that's where having a deep world build and some idea of how all the mechanics work come to your advantage, because when your characters wander off the map, either at the table or just in your
I
head.
don't need to plot out exactly.
Yeah, you're.
But I know how the world is.
Yes, so
Well,
you can.
There is sometimes you have to go back and figure out, wait a minute, is this there so they can do that? Especially when they're, like got characters that are jumping between planets and stuff like that, and you have to go, wait a minute, where the hell is that planet right now in rotation around the Tau City solar system? Oh my god, I'll have to get out my map of whatever, figure out where they're at, things like that. Yeah.
And you have to. And you sometimes have to make sure that that island that you want off of the coast of Chile actually is plausible.
This will be the last call for questions. We're coming up on time.
Oh yeah, 5 minutes.
So you have a map of star systems?
Yeah.
And you like plug in a date and figure out
It's
where
just a PowerPoint of I took the star chart of Tau City. Oh, that was a fun one, because they thought there were 8 planets on there, and I threw them up there, and I go, well, we don't know what they are, so I'm like, well, maybe they're all in the same orbit, so I put them all in the same orbital path. And then they went, nope, they're at this AU, this AU, and this AU, so I had to rewrite that part of the book to figure out that they were at this distance, this distance, this distance. I know you end up being an amateur astrophysicist, and I figured out the mass of a star can include moons too. So I plotted out different moons for each of them and stuff like that. I came up with all these bodies and stuff like that, and threw names on them and whatnot.
you did that in PowerPoint? Or?
Yeah, it's on a PowerPoint. I got it.
Yeah. Show me.
Yeah. That's all. I got them all. You gotta do that. You gotta have visual aid. I have to have visual aids. I'm a very visual.
Well, it's like we were talking about Google Maps, and if you go, you can search for My Maps through Google Maps, and you can create custom maps and put your own and relabel everything. And you can even attach pictures, like if you're doing historical writing, you can plug in historical pictures or add links and make your own custom map. They have all of the different icons that you can add. You can add lines, so if you're mapping out where like trolley lines are, or where roads used to be or didn't used to be, you can do your own overlay. And then you can have different layers of that you can click on and off visibility, and it's all saved within your Google.
That's fun.
And it's just look for Google My Maps, and you can set up your own custom map. You can do it for a modern trip, but it's also fantastic for historical writing.
For me, plotting into the future, trying to figure out where roads would be gone and where bridges have washed out, and how are you going to travel now? It's been 5 years, it's been 10 years, whatever. That's been really fun. It's figuring out how things would be without maintenance after so long. That goes into.
Well, it's like, things like that change. I mean, they degrade so quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That Google My Maps also, it's a vector, so you can track distances that way.
Yes.
Yeah. How long is it going to take someone when they have horses? You know?
Yeah.
That's hilarious watching the old westerns. And like, we're gonna zip up from Nogales to Abilene. We should be there in a few days. And you're just like, good God, dude.
Game of Thrones did that too.
Yeah, Game of Thrones.
It's a laziest
lost their half
map
the
making
season.
Let's take England and put this just a little bit over here, and yes, we'll call this Winter Haven.
In half.
I know.
Let's turn Hadrian's Wall into ice. Yes. Okay.
I felt bad about the end. We just kind of.
I thought that was hilarious. The description was awesome. It's like the last 3 seasons. That's what happens when you play D&D without a DM.
Yep.
Was the
Maybe
best
he gave up an
analogy.
outline. That
But
would
then,
be right.
and then I kept thinking, well, let's see what George actually writes now. And then I found out he's the executive producer, and it was just like, okay, maybe that was it.
But he says it won't line up though.
Oh, he
He
did.
says it, yeah, it's different.
I got to say, I
The books are
worked
different.
on last year or 2 years ago.
The South of November
Anyway,
panel. 6
Ladies and
months
gentlemen,
ago,
our
that's-
guests, thank you very much.
Tell us where you'll be next.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
11:30 tomorrow morning, I'm making an announcement of significant historic importance.
Okay.
Serious
Tomorrow.
gang. I'm not full of air. I made a discovery that is going to change how we understand ancient Egyptian
Aliens.
history. I'm not
This is
a
at what
person
time
that makes stuff
spoon management.
Yes, and I'm going to be at spoon management at 11:30. So if you want to know how to juggle depression and other issues and things like that, and your spoons, think of it like hit points in terms of this panel.
Increase your max hit points.
Yeah.
There's actually games with sanity points. So.
Yes, there are.
We had the editor's speed thing, so you newbie or not so known writers bring your first pages, and we will.
Well, see, I could be on your panel too, though. Right?
We'll only do paper cuts.
Diana, do you
We
do
won't
writing
leave your
for games?
precious first
Do you
page
do
all
like
bloody with red
writing
pen.
for games like
We'll just do
freelancing?
paper cuts.
Just for games that I have played with my players.
You don't do like if someone had published their own game and needed like some narrative or some.
I could, I suppose.
You'd be open to that.
Yeah, I could. I'm next at Playing Well with Others collaborative work at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And I have a very trying co-writer, so I can speak to them.
And sometimes they're more trying than others, is that what you're saying?
They're very
Oh,
trying.
yeah.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, very much.
Oh, and last, if anybody wants one that doesn't have one, please come forward.
Go get one. Go for it.
Hello, this is Eric.
And Wendy Strog with Stone Valley Hobby and Games.
We sell board games, card games, role-playing games, and supplies. We have thousands of Magic the Gathering cards available, carry Kickstarter products, and work with veteran-owned small businesses to bring you our own line of products.
We are a small business retailer, but we offer competitive prices, a loyalty system, and free shipping on orders over $100.
As a military veteran myself, I'm a strong supporter of our armed forces, their families, and contractors out there doing the hard job. So any order from an AA, AE, or EP address will be shipped absolutely free.
Remember, StoneValleyGames.com, where we take your leisure seriously.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.